Good afternoon. I'm Richard Gonzalez, the Director of the Research Center for Group Dynamics, and I'd like to welcome you to the State of the I, December 2021. For those of you who are here in person in Thompson, as well as those of you who are joining remotely on Zoom. Kate Cagney will have to participate remotely today because out of an abundance of caution, she's staying remote due to a potential COVID exposure. So I'd like to turn it over to Kate now.
Great. Thank you so much, Rich, for stepping in to greet everyone today. Thank you all for attending. I can't see you right now, but I feel as if I am there. And I want to give a special thanks to Anna and Catherine for being so nimble. I did have a COVID exposure on Tuesday. I had a test that came back negative, but it's not a long enough window for me to be completely certain that I'm not putting any of you at risk today. So I'm choosing to share an update of our year together and some vision for the future in this manner. So that's one way that this event today departs from my original plans. But also we were going to showcase one center, and that is Rich's. And so he'll be joining me in the presentation today. And again, I want to talk a little bit about the future. I think we typically spend State of the I focusing on all of the achievements of the past, but I want to spend some time with you today thinking about how our future may come together. So with that, we'll start today's program by recognizing some of the ISR employees who have gone above and beyond expectations. So we're going to start with the Vuthi Penn Award, which was established to honor the memory of Vuthi Penn, a longtime associate and esteemed senior programmer analyst at ISR. This award recognizes individuals who make a difference in the lives and work environment of colleagues by facilitating cooperation, commitment to service, and positive interactions. So I'm just going to go ahead and share our news of the winner, who is Mary Cheatham. Congratulations, Mary. Mary works in SRC on the Health and Retirement Study. And I want to say a little bit about those who nominated Mary. They had glowing praise for her work. They wrote, Mary exemplifies the qualities the award is intended to recognize: cooperation, service, and positivity. Mary's style has always been to approach every task, routine, or new with professionalism, organization, curiosity, and good humor. Mary's style naturally invites others into collaboration and cooperation. This results in more efficient and successful outcomes. Mary leads others without their knowing they're being led. She's gentle and kind, honest and effective, with a dash of humor. She makes the workplace a better place. These positive qualities have been particularly important during the pandemic. And if Mary is with you, Mary, I hope that you'll stand and be recognized. I'm going to move on to the Shine Award. The Shine Award was launched in 2020 to recognize staff who make a difference in their colleagues' lives and our work environment by exhibiting resilience, adaptability, flexibility, positive spirit of teamwork, good humor, and self-care in the face of challenge. This year's recipients of the Shine Awards are Grace Ridings, David Thomas, Kathy Say Ostrowski, Donna Walter, Nicole Kyrgyz, Nancy Calvin-Naylor, Sarah Bujala, and Derek Thorne. Let's congratulate our colleagues who are celebrating milestone years of service this year. It's wonderful to see how many people have built their careers here. Thank you for your commitment to ISR. Great, and now we're going to congratulate our colleagues who are celebrating milestone years of service this year. It's wonderful to see how many people have built their careers here. And let's note them now. This is 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and 40 years. And let's give a special shout out to Nancy, Don, and Bill. Now we're going to move into our section where we're going to talk about productivity and describe both the number of grants and the volume in terms of resources that were brought in over the past year. Proposal submissions remain high in fiscal 21, with 320 submissions for over $414 million. The top three sponsors were NSF, NIH, and the CDC. We've averaged 311 proposed submissions per year over the last 10 years. Proposal submissions, volume and value both increased in fiscal year 21, despite the pandemic. Over the past 5 years, ISR has had the second highest submission success rate at the University of Michigan at 48.8%. That's second only to C's. So that's extraordinary. Of the proposals submitted, ISR spent roughly $107 million, which was in line with expenditures for the past 5 years. ISR ranks fourth in research spending at the university, behind giants like the medical school, engineering, and LS&A. So let's move to our human capital then for the moment. And this, of course, is our most essential resource at ISR. There are over 1,400 of you that work here, and I'm deeply grateful for your dedication and service. You can see faculty, regular staff, SRO field staff, and our temporary employees. I do want to note that the provost calls ISR one of the crown jewels of the university. She's backed that up with over $8 million of support in fiscal year 21. In addition, the provost has modified the tax policy to recognize the unique environment that ISR operates under. In short, we will be operating under a cap, so there's no longer a disincentive to grow. And for those of you who would like more detail on tax policy, I'm very happy to have a conversation with you about that and how it changes the structure of our operations.
Hi, I'm Fabian Pfeffer, the director of the new Stone Center for Inequality Dynamics. I'll just take a few minutes to tell you about how we got here and what we hope to do in the future. As the pandemic has lifted the veil on so many inequalities that we encounter in our country today, building the center at this very moment is crucial. But of course, concerns about inequality existed long before the pandemic, and so have our efforts to build the center. Our earliest effort in this direction was the Inequality Lab, which I started in 2017 with a number of graduate students from sociology. We grew quickly, and in 2019, we were fortunate enough to gain additional support by the Institute for Social Research, the Survey Research Center, LSA, and the University of Michigan Provost. That included access to this building and the ability to democratically design this beautiful space that you see behind me. We invite you to swing by at any point. We're on the second floor of Wing 1. My first contact with the Stone family occurred even before starting the Inequality Lab at a workshop at the City University of New York, where the Stones had given money to establish a similar center. A few years after that workshop, I connected to the director of that center for her to help me in determining the best timing and approach to make contact with the Stone family. As their interest in supporting inequality research, and in particular research on wealth inequality, had grown, they were looking for additional ways to partner with universities. And we were in a great position to show that we were not just interested in, but had already begun to build a new organization in this space. Later, I was able to draw on the superstar ISR development team, Henry Jewell and Grace Ridings, to bring this gift home. So how did we do it? I think in the end, with lots of patience and finding the right timing, which we're fortunate to do. Based on this generous gift, the Stone Center for Inequality Dynamics will be able to pursue its overarching goals, which are to become an incubator for foundational research on social inequality. We want to build a strong intellectual community that is open, democratic, and diverse. We want to train the next generation of inequality scholars. And in good ISR fashion, we want to create data for others to study social inequality. And then, at the very end, we also want to help envision a world that is less unequal and that is more just. We're really excited that we can do that, and we're very thankful for the support from the Institute for Social Research and the University of Michigan.
And as we note, our faculty are a critical resource. And we, of course, want to take a moment to acknowledge our faculty colleagues and friends who have passed in the last year. Al Hermelin, Research Professor Emeritus in the Population Studies Center, passed away on March 2nd. Al played a major role in the life of the PSC, ISR, and the international social science research community. He was a former director of the PSC, founding director of the Michigan Center on the Demography of Aging, and president of the Population Association of America. In June of this year, Gabor Ketsi, research associate professor in the Survey Research Center and a member of the HRS program, died after a long battle with cancer. Gabor had a strong interest in building data infrastructure to advance science and to provide a firm foundation for analysis. Next, Ron Engelhardt, research professor emeritus in the Center of Political Studies, passed away in May after a long illness. One of the world's most cited political scientists, Engelhardt published over 400 peer-reviewed articles and authored or co-authored 14 books during his career. Ron was the founding president of the World Values Survey, which has been ongoing since 1981. Finally, Bob Cheney passed away in October of this year. As a professor of economics and public policy and a research professor at ISR, Bob conducted groundbreaking research that fostered interdisciplinary partnerships across a range of social science disciplines. Notably, he was the co-director of the panel study of income dynamics from 2009 to 2012, studying issues of poverty, income, family formation, aging, wealth, and health. And I just want to note that we're hoping to have a gathering to honor Bob's work and his work, particularly related to mentorship in May of this year. And I'll be back with you with more details. So I'm going to share some research updates now. I'm going to share research updates among the 5 centers, but then I want to showcase Rich's center in particular this year, and we'll be taking turns year after year. Rich broadly volunteered to be our first, and again, it's a bit of a departure from the state-of-the-art pattern, but I thought it might be nice to take a deep dive into the work of one of our key centers. But let me know, we have so many accomplishments to celebrate this year, and I'd like to share a few of those highlights. ISR's largest studies, the health and retirement study, the panel study of income dynamics, and the survey of consumers, has been able to provide longitudinal data on the immediate and long-term impacts of COVID-19. ISR's D3 lab, that's data science for dynamic intervention, decision-making laboratory, received a catalytic grant to develop cutting-edge methods that help scientists build sophisticated interventions for substance abuse disorders. This project brings precise treatments to people in our communities. CPS has led the way in understanding the historic 2020 election. The American National Election Study provided early access to important insights, and ICPSR has made restricted ANAS data available to the research community. These data sets provide the foundation for important future research by diverse emerging scholars. I'll note that a PSC team is working with the Detroit Police Athletic League to assess the impact of their community building programs on over 15,000 youth from across Michigan. The findings will fuel evidence-based decisions about how to improve the relationship between police officers and the youth, and more broadly, their communities. In addition, the Detroit Metro Area Community Study, DMACS, fielded innovative rapid response surveys throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can see we have a lot of contributions to our understanding of COVID-19. And that was to learn about Detroiters' experiences, vaccine hesitancy, pandemic unemployment, and attitudes about public safety and police reform. ICPSR led conversations surrounding ethical and equitable research and data use for the research community. These aims to ensure that social research does not harm populations, right? It only brings good being studied, or contributing to further marginalization of racialized communities. ICPSR then launched an NIH-funded coordinating center to support collaboration and research data management for social, behavioral, and economic research related to COVID-19. So that just broadly describes a lot of interaction of the centers. And then I want to talk a little bit about innovations in DEI related to all of that work. ISR is the first unit or school at the University of Michigan with a comprehensive policy addressing accessible technology. Our Technology Accessibility Committee was charged in January 2021 to provide ISR with resources and assist in implementing that policy. Most recently, TAC, as it's called, has been working on a pilot process to test and then remediate accessibility issues with ISR websites to ensure that all in the ISR community can take full advantage of our web resources. I'll note that the Inclusive Research Matters seminar series, which has been very well attended, has been an ongoing DEI initiative this year spearheaded by the Educational Programs Working Group. Topics this fall have included the measurement and meaning of family structure, the impact of response styles on inclusive measurement, diversity in online samples, and accessible survey design. Additional events in the series are being planned for the winter semester. I'll also note that we're working to improve diversity and inclusion through the Working in Diverse Teams training series. This series will take place January through March of 2022 and will address diversity and teamwork, mitigating unconscious bias, navigating microaggressions, and bystander, upstander strategies. And finally, I'll note that over the coming months, Sharon Notero and the ISR evaluation team will be conducting an evaluation of our DEI 1.0 plan and developing the next 5-year plan. You'll have the opportunity to give feedback on DEI initiatives through surveys and focus groups this winter. And with that, I will hand things over to Rich, who's going to tell us a little bit about our CGD.
So thank you, Kate. So it's a pleasure to give a brief update of the research progress this year within the Research Center for Group Dynamics. My goal today is to give shout outs to several projects that had to pivot efforts due to the pandemic. These pivots included changes in the method of data collection and various other protocol changes that I'll highlight along the way. And I also want to highlight the global impact of research within RCGD. I'll give you a sense of the breadth of work that researchers within RCGD conduct. Our funders of the work that I'll be talking about today include NIH, NSF, several foundations, and several industry partners. Liz Roberts, an anthropologist, is the PI on the Neighborhood Environments as Socio-Techno-Biosystems project, which takes place in Mexico City. It involves water audits of 60 households. The data include ethnographic, biomarker, and water quality information. Key findings demonstrate the resilience and heterogeneous response to water storage. Lisa Wexler is the PI of the Indigenous Wellness and Suicide Prevention Project that takes place in Alaska. This project pivoted this year from an original community-based train-the-trainer intervention model to a virtual model with a focus on school personnel and community health workers. The intervention includes information to broaden mental health awareness and engage families in universal prevention and wellness activities within their own homes. Eric Dubois and Rala Huseman continue their work on various longitudinal projects examining children and adolescents. One focus this year was on data collected in Flint, Michigan, and in Jersey City, New Jersey, on exposure to violence and subsequent weapon use. Beverly Strassman leads a multi-generational prospective cohort study in Mali, examining the molecular mechanisms that transmit health and disease from mothers to offspring. During COVID, biological tissues could not be shipped, so they had to be stored in freezers for several months. The samples have now successfully shipped, and in-person interviews had to be conducted or had to pivot to phone calls. Robert Taylor is the PI of the Michigan Center for Urban African American Aging Research, known as MUCWAR. The program is in its 22nd year of NIA funding. Much of the community outreach efforts and the scholar mentoring had to shift to online throughout the year. The program mentored over 100 research scholars from across the US and conducted community outreach with scores of community member participants, primarily in Southeast Michigan. Brianna Mezuk is the PI of the Michigan Integrative Wellbeing and Inequality Training Program. which mentors 20 early career scientists each year from the US and Canada to investigate the intersection of mental and physical health with an emphasis on health disparities. The program includes an intensive 3-day summer institute, followed by ongoing collaboration with the mentorship team. The program switched to virtual during most of the pandemic, but in November of this year had an in-person session at ISR's home lab, where the bedroom was converted to mimic a physician's exam room. Shinobu Kitayama is the PI of the Culture and Cognition Lab, which during the pandemic examined cultural and regional variations in COVID-related infection and fatalities. Here are graphs showing the role of the relational mobility variable on the exponential growth rates of both adjusted cases and adjusted deaths across over 40 worldwide countries. And I direct the Biosocial Methods Collaborative, which had much of its in-person data collection efforts stopped during the pandemic. We pivoted our projects to initiate a new 12-week longitudinal survey of 125 families in Southeast Michigan and Northern Ohio, which we conducted virtual interviews of COVID ICU patients and their caregivers. And we produced COVID caregiving resources that have been distributed to over 1,000 patients within the Michigan medicine system and have had over 5,000 downloads from across North and South America. We were able to resume limited data collection this summer and fall, focusing on developing new methods for measuring the stress response, piloting new studies, and developing a home lab physician's exam room that I mentioned under Brianna Mezu's project, MIWI. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and students at RCGD, I wish you all happy holidays and a wonderful new year. I am confident that we will continue to respond in effective ways to the new challenges the pandemic will present in the upcoming months. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich. That was a fabulous inaugural approach to focusing on the interworkings of one of our centers, RCGD. And so I really appreciate the time and effort you put into sharing with our entire group the innovative work you and your colleagues are engaged in. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for generally volunteering after coaxing. I really do appreciate it. Great. So I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I think Catherine's bringing up the slides now, talking a bit about our future together. And I said this is somewhat of a departure. I think the tradition of State of the Eye has really been to celebrate all of the successes of the last year. And I hope we will continue to do that. And I hope to be doing that with you in person after my quarantine period is up. But I wanted to just take a moment and look forward, and wanted to just briefly focus on what I've learned from all of you in our many conversations. And I want to thank you again for showing up to the lunches, the virtual coffees, the office hours, the drinks at York. I've benefited so much from those gatherings, and it really is the only way I can learn about the institution. So I so appreciate your time. And I've tried to synthesize those comments and to think about ISR in an internal manner, in an external manner. And by that, I mean both external, but embedded in the university context, and then external nationally. And then I wanted to share a few comments that are really aspirational in nature. And my hope had been that we would then discuss some of the kinds of points that I'll be making today while we were sharing a meal together, but I hope we will do that in the future. And I also hope you'll send me an email if you have any comments about today. First, I just want to say, internally, what has really struck me is that there is a deep desire for interaction across the centers at all stages of activity and forms of engagement. So really at every level, you've asked me to facilitate interaction, and I hear you, and I'm taking that on. So I have different sets of ideas for how to make that happen efficiently and effectively, but you'll be hearing more about that in the new year. I also would love it if those networks extended to the PIs of some of our larger projects. And I think one benefit of being under one roof is that we can rapidly share innovation. So I've thought about some ideas of gathering our PIs to think about research methods and data collection methods in particular, and I will get to that again in a moment. And then I really want to think carefully about mentoring. And I know within SRC, they've developed a really nice mentoring program. I'd like to extend that, but I'd also like to think about mentoring beyond the scholarship aspects to mentoring academic leaders and how that might help inform our succession plans and to think about how we engage our next generation of scholars, both in the research enterprise and in the administration of the research enterprise more broadly. I just want to think about our external space and how that operates at the University of Michigan. I am excited to report that it has some really nice links to SEAS in discussing possibilities for pilot projects related to climate change. I got a very excited email back from Alec Gallimore, who is the Dean of Engineering, to help think about a new project on rural life. And we've already had some initial conversations about how that might play out. And so if any of you are interested in research in real life, I hope you will send me a note and I can give you more detail about how that project might unfold. I'm also excited to say that we continue our links with the arts, with A2RU and the Arts Initiative. And one of my hopes today was to think about or to describe metrics of evaluation and then to point to the area in which you are sitting and to say, by next year, I hope to have some really interesting installations from emerging artists that will be in the atrium. And I think it's glorious space. And I think it would be nice to bring in another form of capturing social life and a different type of expression and something we could walk by every day and appreciate. So that is also a goal of mine for next year. And I'll then say external to the University of Michigan, and I believe I shared this in my initial conversation with David, but I will share it again, that when I accepted this position and it was announced, so many people sent me emails from around the country and said, go Kate, go fight for social science. ISR matters so much for all of us. And I think it's an important reminder that our work at ISR is a great responsibility, that we really are leading the way and enabling the development and sustained influence of many careers who count on the data that we generate and hold. I think it's important then to listen to our colleagues who are external to figure out how we might even do that in a more effective way. And so I have some ideas in thinking about bringing in scholars from the outside to provide advice to us. And I'll just say finally within that, in that spirit, that others turn to us to think about modernizing the social survey and to ensure that social surveys will not just survive, but thrive. I want to think about the link to sort of our traditional survey methods with computational methods, data scraping and the like. We have a number of colleagues who've already made terrific inroads in this area, but I hope to support that more. And I'm just going to close with a few aspirational notions. I guess why I'm so excited about our work on rural life and think about the collaboration with engineering is in some ways it is, I might describe it as unencumbered by the RFA. I like thinking about developing research priorities that are independent of an RFA or ready support. And that, in my perfect world, entities such as NSF, NIA, and ICHD would be developing those RFAs based on our science and our guidance. So I hope, with the new tax policy underway, with some of these new collaborations that will take more risks in that space. And I think Henry and his team in development, Fabian's a terrific example, and I really want you to see that video, that there might be other ways to support our work and to, again, think about taking risks in the social science space. I also love the idea, this came from a conversation yesterday, but thinking about how we might better embrace foundation grants. And I would so enjoy it if foundations came to our side and said, Thank you for helping us understand the role of indirect costs. Now we recognize that we should be supporting that form of infrastructure in a project so a project can remain successful. I think this is particularly important for our junior scholars, but across the board, I would love for ISR to be able to partner with foundations, and I would say educate foundations on the role of indirect support in the sustenance of our work. And as I noted, development helps us meet these goals really by diversifying the way we support our science. And I want to say too that we're able to successfully diversify in some sense by diversifying the group that conducts such science. And so we are committed to those DEI efforts moving forward. And I'll just say finally in this component that my hope is that we see ourselves as citizens of ISR. As I noted when I mentioned the story about so many people sending me notes about the extent to which we sort of lead the way in the fight for social science and its impact in the social fabric of our communities, that we take seriously that charge and that we come together to do that. And so we see ourselves as citizens of ISR more broadly. So with that, I believe we are turning to our competitive aspect of our time together. And that is the baking competition. ISR nailed it. This is similar to what we did last year. These are our first round finalists: Erin Ware, Laura Cooper, and Rujita Umarji. And I think we're going to look next. So I'll just say, we put out a call for ISR employees to enter the first round of the competition by baking melted snowman cookies. That's what you're looking at now. Our judges selected these 3 finalists, and then the finalists had to bake and decorate a winter-themed mirror glazed cake. I didn't know what a mirror glazed cake was. That maybe reveals more about me than I would like. But anyway, I didn't. And they were invited to put their own creative spin on the final entry. So as you can see, aren't these beautiful? But now I'm pleased to announce that Erin Ware is the ISR Nailed It champion for 2021. The judges loved your use of color. I feel like I'm on that British baking show or something. And the intricate hand-piped snowflakes. I believe Erin is joining us live stream today. So she'll receive an ISR Nailed It apron as a prize. Great. And I think with that, we are closing the formal component of our time together. Again, I so wish I was there with all of you, and very disappointed to not be able to engage. And I just wanted to close by saying, I do so appreciate the kindness you've all shared with me. This was a big move for me. I've only been at one institution in my life. I certainly benefit from some key social relationships of longstanding who have provided support, some very nice neighbors who have eased my entry considerably. But as I've noted too, I've also benefited from those I haven't known who have shown up for those lunches and coffees and office hours. And again, the only way I am going to be able to steward us is to learn from you and to learn what works and to learn what might be enhanced. And so with that, I hope you will continue to reach out to me. I am here, I'm in every day. I am supported nobly by Tara and Mary, who make certain that my calendar can accommodate any time you're willing to spend in conversations with me. So I'll close by saying, I again appreciate all of the work you've done this year to make our work possible. It's extraordinary, the level of grant engagement and support we've received. And that's because you've all shown up in really important ways to get the work done. So with that, enjoy the party, and I hope we'll have another one soon. Thank you so much.